No, I don't think so. I think I'm feeling just as frustrated as I was yesterday. I got up at 5:30 this morning to get here, to make sure I was here for when Boris arrived. He snuck in even earlier than he did yesterday, so he was in by 6:45, so I missed him yet again. I missed him by about a minute. So I just think it's really disrespectful that he won't even face us. I think a lot of us left with more questions than answers yesterday. I mean, where all of these missing messages have gone seems a bit questionable. And I want to leave this feeling like the government did the best that they possibly could and not feeling like, what if? And if things had been different, my mum could still be here. And that's not how I'm feeling right now.
We go there every week and we paint the hearts on the wall to represent the number of people that have died in the UK, and it's over 233,000 people are dead as a consequence of our government's failures. So these are some of the people that we've lost.
Yeah.
So it's my husband.
I lost my mum, Violet.
This is Gareth, who's the husband of one of our colleagues who's not here. And Mark, who's the brother of Amanda. She's inside the hearing room.
They had all their priorities wrong. I still think they do in many ways. And yeah, the whole thing's a disaster. I hope in the inquiry we'll learn lessons in the future. That's what the process is about. I don't think we see justice in the inquiry, but there might be some accountability, which is good. That's important. And maybe after the inquiry's finished at some point, then there'll be enough evidence. My hope is eventually, these people do face justice, proper justice, in the court of law.
Do you regret the Downing Street parties, Mr. Johnson?
And I thought, what I'm saying is that this was a phrase in common parlance at the time, and remains so.
Sir Patrick Valence's diary is 273901, page 92.
Yes,
Actually having a discussion, a meeting with the PM about, quote, letting it rip, page...
But I don't wish to be
I'm just going to put...
repetitive, but this is exactly what you'd expect me to be talking about at this stage.
Page 245.
This is June 2020.
I'm going to show you all the ones, Mr. Johnson, out of fairness. The Prime Minister meeting begins to argue for letting it rip, saying, yes, there will be more casualties, but so be it. They've had a good innings. 608. We should let it rip a bit. 150. He's obsessed with older people accepting their fate. Obsessed with the average age of death being 82, which is longer, you believe, than the average life expectancy. Get COVID, live longer, you said. Of course, he's the Secretary of State for Education. He didn't think schools should close again. That in light of your views secretly held about people dying having reached their time anyway, that you were obliged to reject the advice of your advisors that there be a circuit breaker?
No,
that there be no national lockdown until the
No.
last possible moment,
No.
and that you
This is
would
all
try
rubbish.
a tier system.
No. No. So the implication of the implication that you're trying to draw from those conversations is completely wrong. And my position was that we had to save human life at all ages.
Horrific grief during lockdown. We all know that it's far more traumatic even than many other kinds of.
What can I do but again apologise for mistakes that we made in number 10? What I'm trying to tell you and to tell the inquiry is that I think that the characterisation, the representation there has been of what civil servants and advisors were doing in number 10 has been a travesty of the truth. They thought they were working very, very hard, which they were.
Could you have done more to stop it?
I think the answer to that is that given what I knew at the time about what was going on, the answer to that is no. But what I possibly should have done is issued a general instruction to everybody to be mindful of the rules and how things would appear. And as I say, I think in one of the WhatsApps that was earlier quoted by the counsel to the inquiry, that's my view.
That WhatsApp was dated almost exactly 1 year later on the 17th of December 2021.
This is around that time, the time in the revelation of the partying in Downing Street.
I haven't talked about this before in public, and it goes to what you were saying earlier about elderly people and my what you claim is my indifference to the pandemic. I just want to remind you that when I went into intensive care, I saw around me a lot of people who were not actually elderly. In fact, they were middle-aged men, and they were quite like me. And some of us were going to make it, and some of us weren't. And what I'm trying to tell you, in a nutshell, and the NHS, thank God, did an amazing job and helped me survive. But I knew from that experience what an appalling disease this is. I had.
This is no one's going to speak to you, is it? This is just.
And this has been one of the most unusual pandemics. Everyone in this country.
Across the United Kingdom, many will have watched the evidence of Boris Johnson today. He was the Prime Minister that presided over the meltdown of the British state, and that for many is a grotesque distortion of the truth. It's sadly, as was expected, it would appear that those acting for Mr. Johnson or others who have special interests have tried to defend Mr. Johnson over the last few days, so it was entirely predictable. He issued an apology, but he caveated by saying that he got the big calls right. How do you get the big calls right when we had one of the highest rates of death within Western Europe or out of any of the major economies? How do you get the big decisions right when you waste £37 billion on test and trace system that doesn't work? How do you get it right when actually our frontline workers lost their lives, are suffering from long COVID as a failure to deliver PPE? He didn't get the big decisions right. He's trying to blame everyone else. He has failed to take responsibility, and he must account for his actions.
How could we all know what was going on in China and Italy and he was
His words today, as far as the bereaved that we've spoken to, are insulting to the memory of the bereaved. He needs to tell the truth. He needs to account for his actions. This is his people's emails, his people's WhatsApps that have spoken up about his attitude, his disgraceful attitude, his insulting attitude to the vulnerable, to the poor, to the ill, to the elderly in this country. The elderly were treated as toxic waste. They should not have been left to die, often on their own in care homes, being discharged into care homes.
Globally, people are just numbers. Those impacted
who are still suffering from ongoing symptoms from a COVID-19 infection.
He has tried to model himself, as I understand, on Winston Churchill, his great hero. But Winston Churchill would not have disappeared for 10 days during the Battle of Britain. I suspect he would have stayed in post and would have fought on. Boris Johnson disappeared. He failed on each and every occasion to take the decisions that mattered. He had the advice, they told him to act. This wasn't a case of there was mixed messaging across the United Kingdom. He holds the responsibility. He's the one who had the levers of power.
Try to bring the fact of long COVID.
In March 2020, when me and my family were panicking about how to